This is Tough Talking Thursday. My name is Dennis Ja. I'm focused on Liberia, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Every Thursday, we have Tough Talking Thursday. This is where we talk tough on any issue whatsoever. Yesterday, we celebrated the International Women's Day. So today is our time to talk tough on International Women's Day. This year, we are saying every year, what they try to do on International Women's Day is to build the momentum for issues that matter to women and inspiring change. That's women. But as men and boys, what can we do to help? That's the discussion we're going to be having tonight. This year's theme for International Women's Day is Embrace Equity. With me tonight to discuss this very important topic on the International Women's Day, I have focus on Liberia host on the Literary Hour, scholar Jackie Saye. Jackie, welcome to Tough Talking Thursday. Jackie, you're welcome. Unmute yourself, please. You're muted, Jackie. All right. Why Jackie try to fix that? Jackie, unmute yourself, please. While Jackie is fix while Jackie is fixing that, let me go to our governance consultant here, Mr. Ahmed K. Salif. Mr. Salif, welcome to Tough Talking Thursday.
Thank you, Dennis. Let's do it. What a panel tonight. I'm honored to be here.
Let me also get Jackie back. Jackie, welcome to the show. If you can unmute.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very glad to be here in such esteemed company.
Thank you. I also want to welcome FOL health contributor, Madam Abby Tyler. Welcome to Tough Talking Thursday.
Thank you, and thanks for having me, and happy to be among all these great people of FOL, and look forward to an exciting conversation.
Thank you. Let me also welcome Mr. Thomas B. Kana, graduate student studying, Thomas, I always forget this, international policy or public policy?
Masters of International Development Policy, but I'm actually concentrating on taxation and public financial management.
All right. And what a someone to talk about women issues. So this is great. Welcome to Tough Talking Thursday.
Thank you, Dennis. I look forward to it.
I also want to welcome veteran journalist and women advocate, also former TRC Commissioner Massa Emilia Washington. Massa, welcome to Tough Talking Thursday.
Thank you very much, Dennis. It is a pleasure always to be on the FOL. And I want to say also hello to my esteemed panelists.
We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. Women issue, they are our issues. And so we're going to be having a conversation on women issues as we dedicate tonight to the International Women's Day. So let me, first of all, start with Massa, just a brief International Women's Day. What is that all about, and what is it that International Women's Day try to focus on?
Thank you again. So International Women's Day is actually a day that has been set aside, that is recognized by the United Nations and subsequently all countries of the world, to recognize the unique and significant roles that women play in society and continue to play. So even though this day has been set aside specifically to recognize women, but the concept and the idea is that every single day is Women's Day, because women are probably the most significant portion of the population, and women play very meaningful roles throughout, all aspects of life. And so every single day is Women's Day, but we start from somewhere. So we have this special day that is set to just recognize women symbolically, but every single day women are lifted.
Thank you. Mr. Salif, how does Women's Day concern men?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Dennis. Absolutely. Women's Day should concern men and concerns men because like Commissioner Washington said, right? Women are pivotal in how we succeed as a society. There's no way that any aspect of human existence is possible without the role women play, without women's contributions, whether it's from international development, peace and security, international affairs, to family, to humanitarian affairs, health, global health. Women are compassionate decision makers. They all the time are the ones who ensure that cooler heads prevail from the household level to the international tables.
Thank you. Let me go to Jackie this time. Jackie, the idea of International Women's Day is to champion the causes of women. Historically, what have been some of the issues that women face that make it expedient for us to have a Women's Day where we celebrate women and also uh, kind of champion the cause for women?
I think, Dennis, even historically, women have had a lot of challenges. Their challenges, socioeconomic challenges, political challenges, challenges in every facet of their lives. And I think that is why the AU, the ECOWAS, whatever, we'll focus on Africa now. That's why they found it expedient to write laws about women. But I think that the challenges that women face are much more embedded in a society. I think that it would take more than laws. It would take a change of mindset to be able to achieve this equity and equality that we seek.
Mr. Kane, has a guy. How do you? I mean, do you actually understand what is it when they say women issues equality? What is your understanding of the challenges women face?
Thank you, Dennis. I think going back to the point of why they should concern us, let me firstly say Happy International Women's Day to all the women on the platform and all the other women listening to us. I think it was said before that there are two groups of people in the world. There are women, and the other people are those that were born by women. So you are either a woman or the other person is the person that you gave birth to. So I think for those who gave birth to us, we need to be concerned about them, and we need to celebrate any day that is set aside to be able to celebrate their achievement as well as throw light on how we can be able to move forward. So again, let me say Happy International Women's Day to all of these women and the ones that are listening to us. In terms of challenges that they have, like has already been said, there are a lot of challenges. Some of the challenges that women have are related to economic empowerment. Some are related to political participation. Some are related to power dynamics in terms of decision making, in terms of participation, all of that. So it should concern us as men, because if you have, like I said, two groups of people on the planet and in every country, in every society, if you have one group that goes very far ahead and the other one is left behind, then it means as a society, you are not making progress. The more we can be able to make progress as a society, the better it is for society. But if you leave one group behind, then of course it is not progress. This is why you see now the UN talking about leaving no one behind. So I think there are a lot of challenges that women face, and it should concern us as men, because essentially these are the only people we have on this planet that we are um, that we are living together with on the planet. So we need to be concerned of how far they are, where they are, and if we should move together at the same pace, we should be concerned about them and the issues that they face with.
Thank you. Let me go to Abby and go to the now. Abby, right now, we all live in America, in our community, in our workplace, in the larger society. What are some of the challenges women face that talk about disparities that you see, that you are aware of, and something that probably affected yourself or people around you?
I think for me, coming from the healthcare perspective and all that, anything that affects the mother affects the entire family. So it's important that we work policies that make healthcare available or affordable to most women, especially women who are lower class, meaning economic wise now. Because most of the time, if you have any kind of health issues, especially sometimes I see my patients and they come up with health issues, and if there's a thought of them having to lose any kind of pay or have to take off from work and all that, they always worrying about their kids or worrying about the husbands, the family, how well they're going to be able to do things. So the first thing they always think about is their family. So if we can find a way to make policies that are going to be easier for women to be when they face any kind of health crisis, for them to be able to navigate that a little better. That's one of my main things coming from healthcare, so the healthcare perspective, making sure writing policies that way enable women to be able to like perform if there's any injury or any kind of illness, that they don't have to worry so much about where's my next paycheck is going to come from. At least I can just concentrate on my health, concentrate on my family, but concentrate on getting better to be able to be a better mother or better breadwinner to my family. That is one of the most important things right now in America is healthcare and affordability.
Right. So you are you saying that women are disadvantaged in that area more
Very
than
much so, especially if the woman, if the mother is the single mother, or she's the primary breadwinner or more of the breadwinner and all that too. Yes, is women are very disadvantaged. I see that every day. Every day in the practice I work at, I've seen that over the years when I worked, as a nurse and all that, and I'm working as a provider. But I've seen that every day, even my own family or personally and all that. I remember when I was sick at one time. My husband and I, we both work, but I knew very well that okay, yes, I'm also like a caregiver to my kids. My husband and I, we both, do the different chores and all, but still, as a mother, you're like raised to say, okay, you're the primary caregiver to the children, the physical caregiver to the children when they're much younger. So I know there were times where I ignored my own health because I wanted to make sure that my kids were going to be okay. So that's one of the things I'm talking about. And when you're pregnant, when you take off, if you don't have short-term disability, that's an income that's not coming in. When you're sick and you don't have long-term disability or anything else, that's income that's not coming in. That can affect the entire family, regardless of whether the husband works or especially if you're a single mother too. So most of those things, that's when we talk about affordable healthcare all the time. Those are one of the main things that I come across every day at my job.
thank you. This year, the theme for International Women's Day is embrace equity. And embrace equity. Let me see. So the definition they say equality is not enough. I mean, we've been preaching equality. This year they say equality is not enough. So you want to know what is equality? Equality is everyone gets the same, regardless if it is needed or right for them. Then equity is everyone gets what they need, understanding the barriers, circumstances, and conditions. So I saw a very beautiful picture that went with that, and I want to share it as we discuss the theme of this year. So here is the picture, and somebody found it funny. So you have reality. So the reality is, I mean, people got what they got, right? So it's not it's the reality. You see a small boy they're trying to watch the game. The guy who's already tall, he has all the tools and he's able to still stand on them even though he's all the way in the sky. Then we have equality. So let's give each of them the same height of stool. So they got that, but the youngest guy still can watch the game, even though it's equality. They all got the same, right? Now, when we talk to about equity, you give someone based on their needs and their unique circumstances. So the tall guy got no stool. This one have one, and the shortest has two. So that's equity. Let's talk about that a little bit. Just the picture. Abby, what do you see in that picture? And how does it
That's the way it should be. But even with that, that's one of the points about how men can be allies to women. I saw this nice article. Even with that, men just like understanding your own privilege as a male, because you'll say, oh well, we all we all in the same playing field, we all doing the same thing, we all went to the same school, we all did the same thing. You know very well that as a male, you come in with privilege. We need First thing first, men need to understand that. The same way when you're talking about racial issues and everything, you're not in the same playing field. You come in with a search privilege, whether you're a male, whether you're this color, that race, whatever. Men need to understand that. So when you say that and you say, okay, yeah, well, maybe I can see that. Maybe because I have all these advantages as a male, let's try to make policies that's going to make it easier or more, equal for this person to be able to prosper as much as I'm prospering too. So that picture really speaks to it. Yes, realize your privilege and design policies that's going to help everybody be on an equal playing field, and then we can move on from there. That's how I see that picture to be.
Admin, do you see yourself in that reality as the tall guy?
I see myself in that reality. In the international development literature, they have what they talk about, women scholars and who have advanced this whole idea of this what's called WID and WAD. So women and development versus women in development. Initially, it was all about women in development, so that it's about parity, right? So 5 boys or ratio of boys and girls in school enrollment, health outcome, they look for ratio, and women scholars talked about this and said this is not enough. It's not enough, and that's the equality aspect, right? It's not enough to count women, how many girls are enrolled or how many have received this particular outcome and so on, as is to invite women to the table as well. What about their perspectives in development policy making, in development thinking? It is the same thing, international affairs across. It's not just development and national policy making as well. Women involvement in politics, because then they have unique and better perspective. They think thoroughly about what happens at a household level, at a family level, with the children, the elderly, and those kinds of circumstances. So then the whole idea of women and development was really galvanized to try to advance and go away from the parity mentality, which is that equality mentality. And so men who are allied to women say, well, it's not enough only to bring women to the table. How about we welcome women? How about gender and development? We look at the perspective of men and women and try to have conversation so that everyone gets what they need, and everyone is valued, and differences are celebrated, and then create this environment where it's safe for everyone, whether it's the workplace, it's at the home or in the community or school.
Right. And Jackie, let me come to you. If you look in Liberia now, anywhere around you, where do you see that that equality is not enough, as we see in that picture?
Dennis, first of all, listening to Mr. Salif talking about, so the men said it's not enough, and the men said we should bring women. It shows the power dynamics. It is the man that has the power. The power is entrenched in patriarchy. I'm not saying that all men are like that, but even if you look at that picture that you have in the real world, that stool that is placed under the other person to make them equal, that stool will be placed by a man, because it's the man that creates the policies to say, okay, we want to be fair. Here are the policies. So in Liberia, Dennis, it's not enough to say, oh, inclusion. We have to look at the power dynamics. What has made women excluded? Let me put it that way, right? So we look at, I mean, I don't want to bring politics in this, but we look at the rape law,
bring it,
right?
Jackie.
Let's just take one example of the rape law. So the rape law, when they said that rape is a non-bailable offense, right? And then in 2017, you had Milton T.A.J. come here and say, no, we should make it a bailable offense. And men, Fanny Sherma and the others, they voted to make rape a bailable offense. Then you come fast forward 2019, I was reading about Milton T.A.J. saying, oh, if men rape, they should beat them. But you are the one who introduced the law. Now, the power dynamics is that there are not a lot of women, right, in the house, in this legislature. So when you are bringing these, the fact that women's voices were not brought into the discussion shows you that women are excluded in every facet of the country. And people tend to exclude women. They say, oh, women's rights. No, Dennis, women's rights is it should be as essential as human rights. So if you look at human rights and you say, okay, the SDG says everybody is entitled to quality education, you don't need to say, oh, gender rights. When they say everybody is entitled, that means women. But when you start to say, oh, yeah, let's do women's rights, you are sick. Look, in the perfect world, Jen Dennis, there will be no need for a gender ministry. Because when you say a justice ministry will be justice for all.
Right.
By you signaling women out, now it's saying that, oh, we have to help women achieve this equity. And I see that. But when that equity, will it reach? Will we ever achieve it? Don't forget, and the World Economic Forum says that they just published a report that said that it will be 2133 before we will ever achieve gender equity in economic wages, right? 2133. So in a just world, we would not need these things that are being put into place. But if we are to put it in Liberia, there needs to be a consciousness among the men as well as the women to say the power dynamics needs to change. We don't want to be above the men, but there needs to be an open and frank discussion to say, why is it that if a woman works, she gets less money? Are there laws that says that she should get less money, or is it just a cultural belief that oh, the man will take care of her, so she doesn't need as much money? So it's a mind shift. It's a way of looking at things that and questioning and saying, why is it this way? You know, I mean, and my great grandmother, I call her the original feminist, and Massa knows her on Mama Point. When my great grandfather died and she's in the house paying the rent, paying the light bill, even when people knock to the door, the LEC man will say to her, Ma, where your man? And my great grandmother would stand up and she would say, I'm the man and I'm the woman. You know, so the mindset has to shift to be able to see women in these hierarchies of power as well. But it will not happen unless we start to discuss it. And it will not happen until we start conscientizing our young boys to say, woman is an equal partner in the development of our country.
Thank you. Thomas, let me come to you and talking about equality and equity and coming to Liberia. There was just a census, preliminary report. And one of the things that came out was, I think 50.6% are male and maybe 49 point something are female. And that was a big deal, right? People were discussing it because it's, we are equal, right? And but if we look at what we're talking about, equity and equality, that is really meaningless. Let's go to there was a bill in the legislature talking about proportional representation of women. That is, women need to be represented. So what we're looking at now is number of women that are there. But what is going to make the women to be there? Those things are never discussed. Talk to me from a policy standpoint about equity and equality when it comes to these things, that we are so bogged down to equality and we're not focused on equity when it comes to women.
Thank you, Dennis. I think going back to the picture that you show, when you see these tools that, the little boy had to stand on, he had to stand on two, I think, before he watches the game. The other young boy had to stand on one, and the man who's tall enough and old enough did not need any. I think these tools should be understood in terms of the barriers that each of these people are facing. And so if we are going to be talking about equity, then you have to remove those barriers for you to be able to have a level playing field for these three persons to be equal. So that means if we are coming to the a point of discussing equity, then we have to take due consideration of the barriers. And this is where we have to look at the different barriers that women face. We have to look at the different barriers that men face, which might not be the same barriers, which might not be the same magnitude, before we actually decide to be able to provide any, or to be able to develop any policy or any law to be able to address the issue of equity. Going back to the theme of this year, the word accounting for equity is embrace. I think like Jackie said, the UN and all other agencies have been working on equality for decades now. Since the early 2000s, this whole issue of gender equality started. I think now they want to shift the focus to say, we've done a lot in making sure that women are equal to men, but we want to actually focus now on removing the barriers that are there so that we can achieve equity. It's going to take decades to come to get to that point. But I think the point is we need to start thinking about it. This is why they say embrace. So if we embrace it, we allow it to sink down, and we welcome it, then we can be able to work towards them. And in many instances, because there are barriers that women and girls and people with disability, to just broaden this, and children face, there have to be affirmative actions to be able to address these things. And going back to the picture, the affirmative action was that very tall man, tell him to calm down, remove those tools, and give it to those that need it. That has to be an affirmative action. And that's also exactly what we need to do back home, like in Liberia. There has to be an affirmative action to say, let's look at our Senate, for instance. Out of 30 persons, we have only 2. We have Senator Kanga from Grand Bassa, and we have the senator from Bapolu.
Botokane.
So there are 2 of them out of 30 men or 28 men who are in the Senate. If you go down to the lower house, it's equally that kind of ratio. I think you have 7 or 8 female lawmakers in the House of Representatives, and then you have the rest of the other 60 some more that are men. So in that kind of setting, for you to have an affirmative action bill passing to be able to increase the number of women, it becomes very difficult. I know for sure that UN Women has worked with the Ministry of Gender. They've worked with government agencies to be able to pass that affirmative action bill, to be able to give even a reserve, even 30% of seats for women in the House. And it has not just gone through. And so they had to pivot. And now the approach is, it is in the elections law, where political parties are compelled to put at least 30% of their candidates to be females. So the point is, for us to be able to change these things, we really have to be very intentional about it, and to be able to do it. And to me, the only way these things can be done is for us men. I mean, when I say this, Jackie will have a problem with it, but we are already the ones taking all of the space. We have to be willing to give up some of these spaces, because every time you have a female occupying a space, it's somebody's sister or somebody's mother or your auntie or somebody else. And to me, I don't think we should have a lot of problem with giving these spaces. I mean, personally, I would like my partner to work more and maybe spend on me to be spending just like I do now. I personally don't have a problem with it. But I think we have to give that space. We have to be intentional about it before we can be able to achieve equity.
Right. And talking about that, like you give an example of a political party. Say, well, let's have an election law that political parties have more women. But before you have more women in something, women have to be educated. So it starts from somewhere, right? What are we doing to bring women up to that level so that we can have the equality before talking about equity? Masa, I want you to take that. Really, because it is not enough to say, well, let's have 10 women. Each political parties, if you are bringing 5 guys, bring 5 women. But even within the political party or within the society, when it comes to girls' education, it is not prioritized. So I'm in a village, the girls are not going to school. So it goes way back. Masa, what do you think? If you can unmute, hold on, Masa, 1 second. Go ahead.
Sure. So as I'm listening to other panelists, and of course, they all have, in one way or another, expressed part of my thoughts. But as I'm listening to them, especially Jackie made a point of people enforcing laws, but then again, at the decision making level of those laws that are being implemented are the men. And the men are making laws for breastfeeding and insisting that all women must breastfeed their babies in a specific kind of way. And you have only, out of 73 lawmakers, you have only 9 that are women, 64 are men, 9 that are women. And of course, somebody said in the Senate, you have 30 Senate seats and you have only 2 women. So the entire parliament combined, both legislature and also Senate, is only 12, I think 12 or 13% women. So you can see where the problem is. So we come from a society that is completely historically a patriarchy one, and is entrenched in the patriarchy system, in all forms of the patriarchy system. But Liberia, I guess, like other, globally parts of the world, has been making some progress. Okay, so Liberia has all sort of laws. Today we have a rape code. Then we have a gender ministry, and of course, Liberia is a member of CEDA, the Committee on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Liberia produced the Decent Work Act of 2015. Liberia produced the Domestic Violence Bill of 2017. We have a national gender policy that was produced 2018, and then also enhanced in 2020. We have the gender-based violence national policy. We have the plan of action 2018-23, phase 1 and 2. We have a spotlight initiative to end violence against women. We have end the child marriage thing. So we have all these laws that have been, some of them legislated and some of them by executive action of the president's office. And some of them are policies to assist women not only sit at the table, but engage and also be part of decisions that will affect them.
Yeah, but Masa, here's my
The
question. So
problem
what are we doing to bring them to the table?
Dennis, the problem as here is basically, yeah, all the things that the other panelists have said, but I see one of the major hurdles that are keeping women back is a lack of implementation, a lack of enforcement. Liberia as a country is very good sometimes, especially in the past 25 years. We've been producing a lot of policies. We've signed and ratified almost all international conventions protecting everybody, protecting women, but we don't enforce anything. We do not enforce anything. So we need to enforce. We need to enforce compliance. And I think one of the reasons why we have problems with the enforcement of all these fantastic policies and fantastic legislation is because of that entrenched patriarchy system that is there. So we are producing all these laws, but then of course the men sit at the top of it. So if men are heavily patriarchy in their mindset, and they don't, we can produce all the laws, but they're not going to necessarily be a part of the enforcement. And again, it's a patriarchic system, our country. So the men now are at the helm of helping to enforce these laws and policies, and it's not happening. So what we need to do is, people have started doing it already, and we need to just continue. We may not see it in our lifetime, like that statistic that Jackie gave, but we need to continue educating women to be brave, to be engaging, to come out anyway. Sometimes people like to say, oh, now we have one senator. We had one senator before, which was Yongli Kanga Lawrence. Now we have a second senator, and people like to, oh, she's just there, she's just a body. Well, you may say that, but symbolically, guess what? She won extra vote for us. At least what I know, even Boto Kane can I read and write some of those documents, but guess what? She has the practical experience. She knows what it is to be a mother. She's a market woman. She knows what it is to wake up and your child doesn't have food to eat. She knows what it is to be a single mother, and she knows what it is to come from a community that marginalizes you on the basis of your gender. So she knows. So it's better to have. It's good to have people who can understand what's happening in terms of the legislation and stuff, but it's better to have more Boto Kanes than not to have any representation of women at all. So the point there, Dennis, is enforcement. We need to encourage women to come out. We need to continue to help women address and break down those barriers that tend to make women timid, that tend to keep them back. They're afraid to come out. Even those of us who are engaging, you see how they can deal with us. They call us names. And there are a lot of women who don't want to come out to be a part of anything because they don't want to be cursed out. They don't want to be embarrassed and things like that. Now, what we need to do also is that equity is not just equality, but equity is equality plus empathy plus putting into actions all those policies and all those laws to make sure that women are where they need to be to make the kind of decisions that that will improve their lives. So what we need to do here is enforcement. We don't enforce anything as a country. All these laws are just sitting there. You got rape code, you got this and that, but then nothing is happening for women, literally. Literally, it's because of the patriarchal system that we have. Liberia is deeply conservatively patriarchy, whether we like it or not.
Thank you. Let me bring Abby into this. And all of you talk about removing the barrier. So I show you the three, the reality, equality, and equity. Let me show you the last one, which is liberation. No more fence. The barriers are removed. And so whether you are short, tall, you don't even need a stool. Abby, it's not just Liberia, but even here among us on the internet, social media, everywhere we see these things. What's your experience with equity, equality, removing the barriers, and having liberation?
Let me just piggyback. I know you asked me the question. Let me just piggyback on what you were saying. Something about
No,
Liberia.
definitely.
Okay. In the case of Liberia, I think a couple of weeks ago, where the Mo Ali and the young girl that he had been having a relationship with, it came out, the first time it came out that everybody was like all mad that he was with this young girl. Then it went up from there, and then it's like, okay, he said he took over the baby, and then later on, when they found out DNA, found out he wasn't the father, and then it was plastered all over the news, and everybody, even in America, and those of us in America, and other places in the diaspora, was all jumping up and all that. Oh, now she was saying this, she was doing that. The main thing people didn't get about that is, you're all happy that this man who's got money or considerably wealthy in Liberia, he's going to be taking his care away from this girl. I don't know how it's going to, if he's going to continue or not. But people fail to realize that young girls who get pregnant in Liberia, who don't have family members who are well off or can afford it, that's like another level right back into poverty. Okay, there's no safety basket there. There's no safety net there. There's the social services over here in America. You can sit there and apply for, welfare. You're getting food for that baby. You're getting food stamps and good health care and everything for that baby. That's not there in Liberia. So when you think about it and say right away, that's not a playing field. Men can move on. They can have a baby and move on. Okay, so regardless of whether they're a baby or not, not talking about that part, but they can move on. Young boys can get a girl pregnant and can move on. It's not the same. It's not that way for young girls in Liberia. So how can we get to the point where we're talking about not exploiting young girls? Because people are saying, oh yeah, she was like 20 years old, so she should know better. I'm much older than 20 years old now. But when I was 20 years old, I probably would have been thinking of her. And even if you're in Liberia, think about it, as a young girl, you're going to be looking for somebody who's got money to have a baby with, because you know very well you'll be taken care of. And back home, if the man taking care of you, he's taking care of your parents, he's taking care of your brothers and all this different thing, because he's probably stealing some money from the government anyways. Okay, so right there, it's not a playing field. And then also when younger boys, when people are growing up and all that in Liberia, you're talking about puberty and all, young girls, the simple thing is like sanitary napkins. Most of them don't go to school because every month, 4 to 5 days out of the month, they're not going to school. So why are we teaching young boys also about girls' puberty, to know that when they grow up, those are your sisters. Those are girls who you're going to get married to in the future. Those are your mothers and all that. How come we're not advocating for, more gynecologists, female doctors, do reproductive parts and all that? We're talking about more breast surgeons, mammogram for women, all those things, the healthcare that keep our women. We can say, oh yeah, my mother was strong, she was this, she was that, my sister was strong, she was this and all that. But if you're not putting in the policies that's going to help women move up, or that's going to help young girls not see older men as their way out of poverty, right away you level the playing field, but we're not there yet. And then when people keep saying yes, men have to bring women to the table, we're already assuming that men own the table. That's why, again, I go back to male privilege. It's like, who told you that was your table in the first place? All right. It's like, it's the same thing. You're going to go with a racial thing, and that's like male privilege. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to bring women to the table. And no, it's not your table in the first place. It should be equal play field. But at the same time, women also need to understand too, because sometimes people think I come across as a little bit manly or a little bit more aggressive, but not really. You can still be. And the thing about feminism, you can, give you the choice to want to be that, or want to be the nice, soft woman, or want to be hard with whatever it is. But going back to my original point is, we're at a point where we need to start teaching boys that these are the things that girls go through. And in order for them to get to the point where they can become, go to high school and get the same kind of grades and be prosperous and all that, we're never going to get to that point, because you don't understand these girls are going to be, the girls are your sisters, your cousins, your wives, your future wives, your mothers, and all that. So we need to get back to that point too. Let's start from the beginning.
Thank you, Jackie. This is becoming a little more daunting now. We're talking about bringing the stools. You say, well, it's men that own the stool. Now men own the table.
Yes.
How do we approach this? It's like because I thought bringing the stool was the best thing to do, but you say it's men who are making the decision about the stool. It's men who own the table, and they are inviting us to the table. So,
and Dennis,
what do we do?
I agree with Abby. I agree with Masa. The man, if the man is bringing his stool, but this stool may not be exactly the height that the woman needs. It may not be the right kind of stool. And what I'm saying is that you need to be able to understand the barriers before you say, oh, one size fits all. Coming back to Abby's point, and I know, Dennis, I know we're not going to be talking so much in politics, but here is something I want to read. And please just bear with me. This is the Liberia Penal Code law, right? And it says, this is if anybody is 16.3, right? The Penal Code says a woman whose pregnancy has continued beyond the 24th week commits a felony of the 3rd degree if she purposely terminates her own pregnancy, otherwise than by a live birth, or if she uses instrument, drugs, or violence upon herself for that purpose. A person who induces or knowingly aids a woman to use instruments, drugs, or violence upon herself for the purpose of terminating her pregnancy, otherwise than by a live birth, commits a felony of the 3rd degree, whether or not the pregnancy has continued beyond the 24th week. And I'm reading that, and I'm thinking, they say the woman. Why only the woman? Why only the woman? Men make laws, and they use women's body as the territory by which these laws should be carried out. The battleground is the body of the woman, because she is defenseless. And when you coming back to the stool, Dennis, I agree with Abby, and I agree with all of the panelists, the men as well as the women, that yes, the barriers need to be removed. We need to have the fence out of the place. But that cannot happen until we have the discussion. For example, if you ask the men who have power in Liberia, what does women's equality mean? It will be totally different. What does equity for a woman mean? Will be totally different from the men as opposed to the women, because the women have lived experiences. We know what equality means. We know what equity means in our lives. So I think that, yes, it's good that we have 2 women in the Senate, but I think that we should focus on educating both our men and our women. And then the natural output would be equity. So when a man is standing there, if he is taught right, he will say, oh, the woman is not represented here. Because many of us also, as we're looking for speakers, and I'm like, there are not enough women. But it must be built into our men and our women. Not that when we say, oh, oh, we need a woman, so you just bring anybody to sit. I mean, you need competence, but I agree with my side that sometimes you need a woman who has gone through the experience that a woman has gone through. But I think that Liberia is the mindset, it's the way people look. It's and we're discussing with men, but it's not only men. Some women look at women different. A woman who decides to stay in her house, and she decides to be a housewife, that is her choice, right? Equity also means choice. I have the choice to stay in the house if I want. I have the choice, which means give me the choice also to be educated. It is me, my right. I will decide, but give me the choice. And we tend to. I mean, some of the worst words that were said to that little girl were by women, not men. They were by women. So we need a change mindset. We need a change mindset in our country as we look at the next gender. We do. We need to train our young men and women.
Mr. Salif, are we understanding the women or the men now? Because, and let me give you my own example. I was speaking with a female colleague, and we're talking about those days when women, men were married to more than one, two, three wives. And I said, oh, I jokingly said, oh, let's bring back those days. And she took a serious offense and said, these are not issues to joke about. And you think it's a
Yes.
joke, right? So are we able to understand the women to the point of we are not taking life and death issue as joke?
Mhm. That's a very big question. For us in Liberia, our country, we have a dual legal system. We have this civil law system, and then we have the customary law system. It has been like that forever, even today. On the customary side, as long as it's not inconsistent or contradictory to the Constitution, it's legal. And even so,
Men make those laws.
even so, a lot of times they don't do the constitutional checks, because if you really check, a lot of the customary practices conflict with the Constitution, right? So also that under the civil law, for instance, polygamy in Liberia is illegal as we speak. However, on the customary side, it's not illegal. So the mentality is really legal in Liberia. It's okay. Until we grew up and we are acculturated in our other panelists have said that patriarchy, we socialized like that in the family context. Maybe they will prefer the boy over the girl when they are making decisions about resources, who gets to go to what kind of school or who gets education. Sometimes the perception is this girl will grow up and take the education, the investment to her husband's family, and so that's a loss to her father's side of the family. So these things are still there. We try to go away from that, adopt laws and policies, and ratify these international conventions and treaties. But like Commissioner Washington said, we don't really implement laws, not just the international treaties, but even our own domestic system. Lots of good laws on the books. She just went over the list of how many instruments and international policy or treaties and domestic legislations, but it's as if they don't exist, because we have a culture of non-compliance. We have a culture of not really implementing or putting any law in practice to the extent that it educates the society, and to remove some of those thoughts and thinking and barriers that then translate to actual policies that are dangerous to women, actually. So the point I'm making, Dennis, to answer your question, is that this is not happening in a vacuum. All of these things that we're describing, this is happening historically. It has been there because we have this dual system. We haven't really legislated to try to harmonize the law. A big chunk of our country is a rural country, and the people,
So let me interject a little bit, Mr. Salif. So because of that, and the women are telling us, this is what I'm feeling. I'm not happy with this. Are we getting it? Or because of these or norms, because of this tradition, because of our socialization? So we are not really able to understand what they are saying, have some empathy, and be able to champion those causes that they're talking about.
Good question again. So in a larger context, right, I'm not being an apologist for that. I'm just laying the context. In a larger context, as a society, as a people, that's how we're socialized. Whether you're in the U.S., in the Liberian community, or in my hometown, Medina or Maka in Bapulu or Lower Bomi County, you socialize that way. That okay, so they've preferred the brothers or the men in the family, and certain things are conferred upon them, and this is the way the customary law is set up. We come to the diaspora, you see a lot of that in our homes, in our community organizations, right? They prefer the men, they push the men to run. The women are kind of supposed to be in the background to help, prepare, cook, do decoration and things like that. We have strong, educated women, right? So in the community, but even those educated women themselves sometimes step back because they too have been socialized that way. The men have been socialized that way. In addition, it depends on the sort of micro level, right? Which family you come from, which experience you've had. How were you raised? How did you grow up? What was your sort of immediate community? And all of those impact how we think about these things, and then how we show up, in spaces where, unfortunately, we have power over decisions. And then now we translate those to policy and decisions that impact women and children. So it's a whole systemic thing that we have to begin to address and in order to address some of what we're talking about.
Thank you. And Mr. Kana, same question. And let me give you another example where, you go to these Liberian events and you see normally Saturday morning, that's the time for discussion, the business meeting. And most of the ladies, including the educated ones, they are cooking, right? So my question to Salif and also to you, because I want us to put on our men's hat now and say, well, are we really hearing the women? Are we understanding what they are telling us concerning what they want? Or because of these norms, because of our upbringing, socialization, we're really not understanding?
Thank you, Dennis. Before I come to your question, I wanted to go back to the liberation.
Yeah.
How do we remove that entire fence and make sure everyone can see? I think for me, that liberation is education. Once everyone is enlightened, I mean, if you look throughout the world, who are those that have become feminists and actually took up this whole issue of campaign for women's rights? They are the enlightened women. They are the ones who have challenged all of the structures, maybe with some support of other men, but women have been the ones standing up to say this is unfair, it needs to change. And to me, the greater problem that we have in Liberia, going back to the point that everyone was making, that we don't implement laws, it's all boiled down to this whole issue of lack of progress in the country. We're not making progress in terms of educating the population. We are not making progress in terms of expanding our economy to be able to empower people. Because to me, for the couple of years I've worked on issues related to women empowerment, gender equity, and gender equality, the fundamental issue is economic empowerment. When you empower people economically, all the other ones fall in place. They will be able to be empowered politically. Because even when you put women on your party ticket to say they are going to run, if they don't have the resources to be able to fund the campaign, they won't win. So it has to be the issue of educating people and giving them the voice and agency. Because even when you go to meetings these days, you go to the villages and say, everybody come to the town hall and speak. But once that woman who did not go to school, she speaks. And instead of using the past tense, she uses the present tense, or she uses the present in terms of the past. Everybody start to laugh at her. The next time you call for meeting, she's not going to come because she feels the language she's speaking, she's not able to speak it. So I think education and really expanding the economy in that country to provide jobs for people, and that is for both men and women, can be able to help with empowerment. And on the issue of whether we are hearing the women, I want to agree with Ahmed, but I don't want to be like we the two men agree with each other, then the women agree with each other. But I think it goes back to that point. These structures are already established in the society. But like Commissioner Washington said, they are being gradually broken down over the past couple of years. Women are now standing up to be able to challenge. I think one of the good things that happened in Liberia is the presidency of Madam Salif. She managed to have pushed the country to make some progress that we would not have made in a couple of years. For her to have broken that ceiling, it really gave some, motivation to women that we can be able to push. So I think women are pushing. In some instances, men are hearing, because if you see what is happening with all these laws that have been passed, whether it's the rape law, whether it's the gender policy, a couple of the policies that are made in Liberia and a couple of the laws that are made in Liberia after the Civil War, you can see how gender has been mainstreamed into them. You can go to the land rights law. For instance, when that law came close to being passed in the House, one of the critical issues that was there was when the law is passed, communities will go through steps to be able to identify that this is our customary land. And there is a step there called self-identification. Community members were going to self-identify to say this person, that person is a member of this community. The point was, if you had a woman from Bapulu, for instance, who before the self-identification got married to someone in Grangide and she relocated, is she part of that community for the fact that she's originally not from there? So I think we are making progress in making sure that gender is mainstreaming our laws, which goes back to the question whether that you're asking whether we are hearing women. I think we are hearing them. The point is that not everything that they have advocated for has worked, and this is going to be a continuous process. But I think I would just say that they need to continue to push. But the only place where they get that power from is for them to be enlightened, for them to be equally educated, and for them to be able to push. And just to conclude, there is one thing that happens in Liberia, and I argue with my colleagues a lot about it. And we are talking a lot about political empowerment, and that goes to the political parties. Do you see any political party that has a men wing? No political party has a men wing, but every political party has a women wing, and they have a youth wing. And my argument is, why do you have these wings? Other people argue that it's a safe place for them to be able to discuss youth issues, for them to be able to discuss women issues. But if that is the case, then there should be a men wing. So the men also go and discuss their issue, and then you have a platform that is equally representative for decisions to be taken. But you have the women wing, you have the youth wing. When decisions are being taken, they are in their individual meetings, and you have one woman who's serving as, in many instances, even when you look at the schools, when you're going for election, the president is a male, vice president is a male, treasurer is a female, sometimes the chaplain is a female. Make sure that women are included in that structure. And to me, when it comes to political empowerment, we really have to go to the grassroots. I keep asking, for instance, the University of Liberia, many of our state leaders come from there. Have we had a female president of OSU, for instance? Have we had a female president of Cottington University, of AME University? They are always men, and this is where people practice. For the first time, I think the current head of FLA is the first female of FLA since FLA was established. So I think it's really going back to the foundation of trying to empower women or girls to become class presidents, to become school presidents, and then they start to practice to come along. But answering your question as to whether we are listening, I think we are listening gradually because the enlightenment in the country on women's rights and women empowerment is improving. But I'm not sure we've heard all of the concerns that they have raised.
The president of Cottington is a woman.
I know, but she is the first, the very first, since Cottington was established. Thanks to the Episcopal Church for having done that.
Master, so we, as we said, every year, International Women's Day want to be building momentum for issues that matter to women and inspiring change. How can men and boys help? When I was putting the show together, there were some suggestions that let's have all female panelists, right? And other questions or suggestions came that if we have all female panelists, then we are leaving the work to all female. So let the guys join. So let me hear from you, Masa. And I like that point. I also make that argument of Thomas that why are we having women's wing and we don't have men's wing? So Masa, how do you want men and boys to help? Masa, sorry, let me go
Okay,
ahead.
so just before I answer your main question, we are having women's wings of all these different organizations is because it is the same concept of breaking down the fence. All those different characteristics need to be removed. So, but let me just say what we can do. We have tried some things in the past, and like Mr. Kane said, Thomas Kane, right? We have been making some strides, but not very significant enough to move women forward. So women are sitting at the table now, but they need to be empowered to use their voices to get them to the next level. So let me just say this. There's a popular term that is used frequently, but it tends to, most of the time, I think people tend to uh, use it interchangeably with the issue of racism. And Jackie mentioned it briefly, unconscious bias. So unconscious bias is a term that doesn't just apply to the issue of racism. It applies to even this topic that we're talking about,
Right.
gender, lack of gender equity and that women experience. So men also, and sometimes even some of us women, we practice unconscious bias amongst women ourselves. Like we will not support another woman, even if she had all the qualification, not really, we don't have any issue with her, we don't know her, but that unconscious bias, we just unconsciously think that the men will do a better job because men are supposed to be historically, that's what we were taught, that they are historically or stronger. And I don't like to say smarter because I'm not going to say that here. But so this thing of unconscious bias, so men in their everyday lives, whether at the policy level or even whether at the home and community level, they have unconscious bias that comes to play in a society concerning women, and people don't really know that. And I will just give you a quick example. When we were on the TRC, I was the gender commissioner as well. I was the oversight for gender. And then as our people were out in the community, engaged in the community and trying to get statement, some of the women were not coming initially, especially traditional women were not coming initially. But then we also realized that when the women came to us and told us that their husbands and partners were stopping them from coming to the TRC because certain things had happened to some of these women in the war, and the men did not want, this information shared. But then also, it was a young man who was, I think, a junior high school student who told us that told us a story about his mother. During the war, his mother was taken away from the family, and she was carried away as the wife of girlfriend of one of the rebels and stuff. And she didn't have any means of coming back to her family, so she stayed and she had a child by this rebel. But this woman, apparently, she always wanted to come home. So as soon as the ECOMA came and opened the roads, she found her way with her child and came back home. The father did not want to have anything to do with her. He sent her back. He denigrated her. He told her, "Go back to your rebel boyfriend. You already spoiled. You waste. You spoil. I can't have you here," and all of that. And some of her elder sons were sided with their father, and they didn't want to have anything to do with her. So this woman was an outcast. And her son told us, and we started having similar information coming from all over the country. So we kind of figure, how do we engage the men? One, to encourage women to come to the TRC, to stopping women from coming, and two, to encourage men to please, accept the women folk back, whether that your daughter who was carried away as a bushwife or whether that your wife or whatsoever. So we had this very ingenious to do. And just very quickly, so we had zonal workshop for men in the country. The whole 15 county has zonal workshop. And I remember the zonal workshop for Monserrado County took place in Sinker, and I was chairing that workshop, and we were discussing the same thing, why are men having problems accepting women back who were forcibly taken away from their families, who were raped and stuff, some of them who had children. And the men, I will never forget, there were 78, I think, of them in that workshop. And then they were so adamant, we don't want them back. They've been living with rebel all these years. The rebel women, they will contaminate our community, they will contaminate our children. One man was so hurt that his wife will contaminate the daughters that she left before the war, blah, 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 blah. So all of a sudden, this thought came to me. So I gathered and went on the blackboard and I drew, and then I asked them, I say, how many of you men in this room have mothers? And almost everybody put a hand up. How many of you have daughters? They put a hand up. How many of you have sisters? They put their hands up. And I was just thinking quickly on my feet, and I said, okay, you love your mother, right? Because I know Liberian men love their mother. Liberian men, if you want him to beat you up, cause his man. So, Liberian men love their mother and they love their daughters. They would die for their daughters and their sisters. Oh my God. If you marry to them, you don't love their sister, that marriage would be in trouble. So I'm standing there, I'm like, oh my God, Liberian men love their mother so much. They love their daughters, they love their sisters. So when I asked how many got mother, how many got sisters, daughter, they put their hand up. And then I said to them, God forbid, if your mother was the one who was taken away and carried as a bush wife and had child sisters, so will you take her back? Oh yes, I will take my mom back. My mom is everything to me. If it happened to your daughter, will you take your daughter back? Oh yes, I will take my daughter back and the child because my daughter has come back to me. I will take my sister back and I will help her to resettle in the community. I will even help her to find a husband. And then I said to them, I said, but do you all know, mind you, they were subconsciously separating their wives and their partners and their girlfriends from their mothers and their sisters and their daughters. So I said to them, but do you all know that your wives, your sisters and your daughters are also the mothers, the sisters and the daughters to other men as well? Do you guys realize that? So just how you love your mom, your sister and your daughter, those other men who are not around, whose mother you married to, whose sister you married to, they love their sister. Whose daughter you married to, they love their daughter. And when we said it, they all erupted. They said, oh, the old man not trick us, the old man not trick us. But at the end of the day, they agree that yes, they must be able to work with the women. They must be able to accept them back because one, it was not their fault. In fact, they were victims of the war. And so sometimes it takes some, creativity to help men to unburden their unconscious bias and to try to work with women. And then another example of Mr. Connor talked about the land law, right, and the land bill. I remember in the early 90s, this was 1993, as you know, we were working with the Female Lawyers Association. I was with Women, Liberian Women Initiative, and the Female Lawyers Association was.
If you don't mind, you can hold that thought. We'll come back to it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. I want to bring, because that unconscious bias. I want to give an example and let Abby chime in.
Okay.
The story is told of a man and his son. They were involved in a car accident. So the man died, and the son was in critical condition. They took the son to the hospital, and they met the surgeon. And the surgeon said, "I can't operate on this boy because he's my son." Who was that? When they asked that riddle, everybody said, "Oh, it was the father who resurrected. The father didn't really die." Oh, it was the uncle, but in African tradition, we're talking about. Father is uncle. No, not even one, including the women, could think that was the boy's mother, because in their mind, a woman cannot be a surgeon. Right? So these things often prevent us from understanding. We may hear what the women say, but it may prevent us from understanding what they are saying. Abby, you are on the internet, in social media, we see a lot of these things, right? Where there's always this fight between men and women. People say, "Oh, you are doing this," or "This is what you are doing." In what way can men help when we come to this gender equity? Because we see it, sometimes we call it bullying on the social media. So give me some real examples. What do you want us to do to help, to be a part of this campaign for gender equity, so that we all can embrace equity?
Well, like I said before, the first thing you can do is recognize your privilege as a male. There's a first start. Yes, I have, I'm the tall guy in the picture. I have everything. Even when you move the barrier away, he's still able to see much farther than everybody else in the picture. So that's still there. So recognize your privilege as a male. When it comes to the workplace, credit your female co-workers equally, because most of the time people just assume that the man is the one that came up with this idea, that the man is the one who did this, that the man who the one who did that. So try to credit your female co-worker, bring them on the you still have to bring them to the table, since we assume that the male on the table. Advocate for gender equality laws and everything. But most of the thing too is, like you said, when you're on the internet, I remember I used to be on these different Liberian forums, and you say stuff. There are times people used to say I used to come up across so strong, and they say stuff, and I'll be arguing with the men and all the women who I remember this one forum used to be on. All the women, they want all the women to be nice and quiet, and they just draw along with the men. If you were that woman who just talked differently or came across differently, any ideas, all the women piled up on you, all the men piled up on you. So as women, what are we doing to ourselves? Because it's like, in as much as you may not agree with another woman, but you don't open the gate so wide open for men to come in, especially men who are not mature enough to come in and abuse a woman or insult a woman like that. And then you see women coming after that. And even other groups that I've been in before, when I'm there with the other men and I'm talking about politics and talking other things, most of the women would just become quiet. I'm like, don't y'all have anything else to say? Don't you have anything to add to that? But they feel so comfortable being in the background. Like you said, you go to an event, the women are busy cooking, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's the beauty of feminism. You want to do that, you can do this. You want to do that, you can do that. But it's like, we're not ready to come to the front yet. So until we get to the point where we can say we want to come to the front, I mean, we're already doing that, but we have to do that every time we come to the front. Then maybe men will respect us more and say, okay, yes, you can sit at the table and we can discuss everything equally. But until then, while we're so busy in the kitchen and cooking and doing everything domestic wise, yes, you can still do that. But all the policies that are being made, they're being made by men, and they're going to be ruling you. So make sure you're voting, making sure you're voting for politicians who see things that way, making sure you advocating for different laws that are going to go away. But I just, at the point where I am to now, when you talk about different things, and it's like, oh, you're Liberians, well, you're a Liberian woman, you're supposed to think this way, or if you do this way, you think you're too American. All of that is that's just a whole different thing. That's why I got from all those forums, because the women wanted to sit back and the men wanted to dominate. So, and even for like you said, in the surgeons and people say, male nurse and female doctor. We shouldn't even be saying that anymore. Just assume that the nurse is the female, then the male is. I used to be in the room when there's like a surgical tech who was a male coming to take my patient, would take the patient down to the operating room. They'd be like, "Oh, okay, how you doing, doctor?" And I'm like, "He's a surgical tech." Okay, so you just assume that I was the one who was like below him, and you assume he was higher than me. So going way back to the basics, go way back to the basics. Start teaching little boys and little girls at very, very early ages. First grade, of course, it's got to be age appropriate. First grade, second grade, start teaching that. So you don't wait till they get to 16, 17, 18, 20, 25. Yes, you can still learn it in, but start teaching at a very early age. And then hopefully the next generation can come into it knowing all that, because our generation is like slowly fading away, so they can come into it knowing that.
Thank you. Jackie, you talk about the power dynamics, or the dynamics that are obstructing inclusion and equality in Liberia, not just in Liberia, but even in our Liberian community here. What can we do? What do you want the men and the boys to do to change that?
I think, Dennis, that it's good if we have policies, but it's also we have so many young people in Liberia, and I think that it starts with acculturating them and teaching them. I was listening to Massa about what happened when the women returned from the rebel stronghold. And Dennis, yes, the men can sympathize with their mothers and their sisters and their aunties and their daughters. But again, there's this power dynamic. That's their wife. They own her sexuality. They own her. So somebody sleeping with her is a violation of them. It's their thing. The mother is there, but it's their wife, it's their woman. So it's totally different. They saw it as a violation of themselves. The power dynamic comes when, like, when I'm in a meeting, we're all equals, and then a guy will look at me. It's not just a Liberian guy. People will look and say, "Oh, I need a cup of coffee," and they will look at me, and I will say, "Well, so do I. I need a cup of coffee too," and I'll go and sit down, because if I'm going for a cup of coffee, there's nothing that would not stop me from saying, Mr. Salif, would you like a cup? That's fine. I'm asking him. But he cannot assume that because I'm a woman, I'm going to get him a cup of coffee. And I agree with Abby also that we always step back. How many times we've gone to an a Liberian event and the men sitting there chatting while the women standing in line to get their food to bring it to the men before they go get their food? Why? Why should it be like that? But then it's coming back to the traditional, the rural women. I was listening to, I think somebody on the panel said it comes through education, and we must admit that Liberia will never be 100% educated. Liberia will never be 100% literate. And I'm talking about the Western literacy. We cannot say that women will not achieve equality or equity until all the people in the rural areas are educated. No, that's not going to happen. There are indigenous methods. Women and men, they do come together to talk about things. So what they need is to say, okay, you see how you men are meeting? Women should meet with you all, because there are some spaces that are preserved for men. And there's nothing wrong with that, Dennis, to have spaces for women and men. The wrong comes when those spaces have the power to effect or to affect somebody's life for the worse. You see, so even if it's for the better, if men meet, like men have their little meeting, they have the we're going to the society to go talk, women have the society, that's fine. But when you say we are going to this meeting to go discuss policies that we're going to put into law for the women or for those that are disempowered, that is wrong. And how can we go about changing it, Dennis? We can go about changing it when not only men, but people start to listen. When you're in your house and your daughter is there and you know that, she didn't go to school today because she has her period. You start to think, okay, I wonder how many women, how many young girls are not going to school today because of that. Empathy. When you start to think about other people and feel for other people, you will reflect it in your laws. I remember when I was at Ebola, when it happened, people were dying all over, right? And then there was some senator or representative who his daughter died, remember? And it's like he wanted to kill everybody. He was like, we got to change the law. We got to do this. So sometimes, unless it affects you, you don't think that you can change anything. So I would say that men who are in power, and power is shifting, not only in government, but when you come home, don't just sit down or close your door. Start looking at your female relatives. Start looking at the women and say, wow, my wife had to go and get coal to come cook today before we eat. Like he says, economic development will bring empowerment to the women. Some of the women, they stay with men and men beat them because they have 10 children and they cannot go anywhere. Where would they go? And and some of us would say, but look at that foolish woman. She can't even leave the man. Where would she go? Where are the safety nets that will hold her when she leaves this man with her 10 children? We are the same people that will be saying, but look at this woman on the street selling herself, and she so the thing is that we have to change the mindset, and those barriers will come down when our men as well as our women start looking at each other and saying, how do you feel today? Like I said, if we ask people in the village, what's equity and equality? They will say, I gave food to my wife. That's equality. You come to the city, you say, what's equality? The man will say, when I put gas in my wife's car and I gave her a car. So it means different things. That box that you see, it shifts up and down depending on your lived experience. But we really have to work with our young men and women to be able to say to them, look at each other, feel what the person goes through, and help them along the way. And like I said, we have to, like Masa said, sometimes we have to push, and sometimes we have to keep pushing these men
so that they can implement the laws and let us be there too. And as Abby say, and they say, if you are not at the table, you're probably on the menu. We don't want to be on the menu. We want to be at the table. And if that table doesn't hold us, we will remove that table and build another one that will hold everybody.
And if you don't have a chair, you bring your own chair, right?
You bring your own chair, but is that table where you want to be seated? That's another question.
Jackie, keep moving the goalpost. Well, if you want to be a part of the discussion, we are talking, this is in commemoration of International Women's Day. The theme for this year is Embrace Equity. We are saying every year, every International Women's Day, what the women are doing is building momentum for issues that matter to them and inspiring change. We as men and boys, how can we help? And Mr. Salif, I'm coming to you there before I open the lines. The lines are open. Please call in and we'll read some comments. It's one of the ways I was very young and my economics professor teacher told me that even from the beginning, if I'm buying, we are buying the doll for the girls and the cars for the men. So why don't buy dolls for the boys too, so that they know how to take care of babies at that early age, and buy guns for the girls too, not just guns for the boys. So what are some of the ways, Mr. Salif, that we men can help break down the barriers? Or as we saw in the picture, giving stool is not enough. We want to remove the barriers. What can we do? And call us, please, or call in and share your thoughts.
Well, it's just by recognizing that difference is good. All right, you can be a man and you have certain physical features. A woman has certain physical features, whether she's your grandmother, mother, daughter, sister, workmate. They may have certain needs to accommodate certain circumstances that doesn't lessen the quality of humanity in them. I think, there's a thing everyone talks about anywhere in the world. It's called culture. And a culture is just how you relate within your own physical sphere of influence, whether it's in your family context, community, or faith community, how people have done things in that specific context, how they perceive the rest of the world, what's the worldview. And that worldview comes from, again, uh, how you were made as a person, like where were you raised, who raised you, what kind of education you got, or what formal or informal, what kind of experience, work have you had, interaction with people other than you, whether that other than you is your faith tradition, or is your education, or travel, or physical features, abilities, disabilities, all of these things. So we as men, we recognize these, you recognize these things, and then bring them, because again, the truth is, we have the privilege. Like here in the US, we talk about implicit biases, we talk about white privilege. The male privilege is real, right? I mean, whether you name it or not, sometimes it's the women who actually uh, assert that privilege or confer that privilege on their sons, on their brothers, on their husbands, their spouses, and so forth and so on. So we as men just creating opportunities, stepping back, encouraging your women folks to participate more, to have a voice, help educate underprivileged community members, family members, people who look up to you. That's what I do every day in different contexts that I'm privileged to be a part of, whoever reaches out to me, whether my own daughters, whether my sisters, nieces, how do I help them be empowered in their relationships, in their education, in their well-being. Generally, I mean, when you stand up, leaders, you can help to bring their leadership out in the female members of your community, of your family. Because, like I said in the beginning, when women are empowered and they recognize that they're supported and respected and honored, amazing things happen, and they benefit everybody in that context.
Thank you, Ahmed. Let me bring in some callers now. The first caller here is Mr. Elvis Morris. Elvis, you are live.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. John. And I want to thank the ladies and the gentlemen on the panel tonight. The discussion is, it's a good discussion, but I think we have to be honest with ourselves. Like I like to say, women and men are equally equal. There are certain things that women tend to thrive at that we men are not really good at, and there are certain things that men are good at that women just, aren't as good at.
Mm-hmm.
We have essentials.
That's why equity, not equality. But go ahead.
Right. And even in politics, I mean, the very nature of politics, when people talk about, oh, women should have a certain amount of seat, I disagree with that idea. Not because I'm not an ally to women, I am, but the very concept of democracy is that the people should be able to choose and not be imposed upon. So if there's a woman who stands out amongst everybody else, including other women and men, that woman will win the seat, or she will win political power. So I don't think when it comes to politics, women should be given a specific amount of seats. But let's just talk about Liberia, our culture, in terms of respecting women and giving women power. In many regards, we've elected the first women in many aspects. We've had the first female Supreme Court justice on the continent of Africa, first female president. I think first female senator in West Africa elected in Ellen Johnson Sirleaf in 1997. So we've made strides as a country when it comes to women's rights. Now, when it comes to domestic, rights for women in terms of domestic violence against women, I think the legislature need to pass an act to protect women. But in other aspects, I think as a society as a whole, we've done a good job, especially in Liberia, in terms of giving our women rights. I think when it comes to the matter of the mind, women and men are equal, no doubt about it. Yeah. But of course, on a physical level, we're not equal. When it comes to nurturing and taking care of kids, women are more, visible in terms of the emotions and the love that they show to the children, and men were more reserved. So it's not an issue of, being we the men were keeping the women down. Not the case. But I hate those feminists who think that anything a man can do, a woman can do it. Not true. How many women do you see building houses? You can have the architect could be a woman because it's a matter of the mind, but not many women, construction who start all construction crew that build a house.
Mm. And why you think is that? Roads. Why you think is that way?
Because it has to do with the physical part of it. Construction is labor intensive. So most women tend to stay away from it, to shy away from it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me take the next caller here. Our next caller is Mala. Caller, your name and where you calling from. Please, let me go to the next caller here. Mala, please turn off the device you are listening to. Let's get Houston Brooks. Houston, go ahead, you're live.
Yeah, well, greetings to all the very powerful lady on the panel this afternoon, and you, Brother Jai, and my brother, Mr. Sirleaf. While the last caller made some good points, I am in some way a little disappointed about some of his comments. Even in the United States of America, first, I'm Mr. Brooks calling from Honolulu, Hawaii. Now, back to what I want to say, even in the United States of America, women did not, if you look at American history, women were not fully allowed to vote in the United States of America until in the 1920s. So yes, the fight for a woman's equality is worldwide, despite the fact that we live in the 21st century. Now, coming back to Liberia, yes, our Liberian society women have made some strides, even as far back as the early 70s. One of a woman case from our family, the late Angie Brooks Randall, ambassador to the United Nations, from a representative to the United Nations from Liberia, and we had even Liberia had the first woman president ahead of the United States of America that have never ever had a woman president. But as what Madam Washington mentioned, there is a lot of work to do in Liberia to empower our women, to give them the opportunities to be what they want to be, say what they want to say, have the same protections that we do as men. So I say, to answer your question, Mr. Jar, what we need to do as men, as Liberian men, number one, we need to listen to our women, but listen in a way that we hear what they want us to tell us how we can help empower them. That's what we need to do. And then two, we need to step out of the way. Step out of the way in the sense that, as Madam Washington mentioned, these laws on the books, our Liberian women need to have the support from us, those in power, to enforce these laws. Enforce these laws that will empower our women. So without going further into details, that's what my little 2 cents. We need to listen, but listen in a way that we hear our sisters telling us how we can empower them. And then two, we need to provide programs and we need to enforce programs that will uplift them. And I will continue to listen. But I'd like to thank everybody on the panel and for all their inputs. It's a very informative show. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brooks. Let me go back to our caller here. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
Francis Wilson.
Francis, go ahead. You're live.
Somewhere. Okay. The point I want to make is actually, I believe the lack of education is, it's what I would call domestic education is for the men. The men are, our men, I'm going to speak to Liberia, but not only to Liberia. Our men are used to sort of cliques. These are things that men do, and these are things that women do. In the 70s, women had far more voice. They keep talking about Madame Salif, but in the 70s, women had far more voice in the society, in government, because women were highly educated. And as a result, they had more to say and they had these high positions. Whether it's America or Liberia, it's the frame of mind. Oftentimes, men are threatened by smart women. A friend of mine visited his family in Ghana. They had all traveled together because they all live in the same area in America. But when they got to Ghana, the tradition was that the woman couldn't join the conversation. She prepared food, blah, blah, blah. But when it came to being part of the conversation, every time she walked in the room, the men just became silent. And she would try to become part of the conversation. They didn't allow her. And I find that happens a lot in our society. We need to start the education of our young boys. And there should be equity in the household. It shouldn't just be the girls do the housework and the boys do other things and that sort of thing. If you go to Liberia today, the majority of the households in the marginalized community are run by women. The market women go to work every day, support those men and those households. And yet and still, these people might feel free to, beat her up or boss her around or take the money that she brings in and spend it elsewhere other than on the family. And why are those women in the market sweating all day for little or nothing? Because they want their children to be educated. And it makes a difference. If you look at the way men joke and the way they talk, when the woman comes into the picture, it can be very disrespectful, and it really shows more their ignorance than their brilliance. We play too much in Liberia. We have no more standards in Liberia, and that's the difference. People talk about tradition. I remember seeing a funny little thing that said, tradition is no more than harassment by dead people. And to a certain degree, I find that to be true. We must have, there's nothing wrong with having tradition, but we must have respect and consciousness, and we must have standards. So that's my part of 2 cents for the day.
Thank you so much, Sis Francis.
So,
all right, you heard our callers. Before, let me put a few comments on the boards before you can. Jimmy said, women have been marginalized through our history. What can be done to give women greater credence in communities? That's Jimmy. I want each of you to take one of those. And this one, Dave just said, what are the economic and social or political advantages of embracing equity involving women? What does the nation stand to gain from such action? The answer to this question will stimulate many to act or to disengage. And the last comment here, I want to Emmanuel Bros say, from what I see, politics is a game of equality. Women should be politically strong to compete with men. They shouldn't have easy ride up the ladder. They ought to equally struggle for seats in government. Let me start with Masa for your response to comments and callers.
I will take the last comment. Yes, women should be strong, and women are trying. Women are naturally strong. Women are trying, but what this caller is not, not the caller, but the person who made the comment, Mr. Ja, what he's not taking into consideration is that from the get-go, from day one, historically, it's never been even. It's never been equal. So women historically have always been at a disadvantage. So it's like, women are not, and I think we've done a fantastic job in trying to, play catch up and in trying to have a voice and in trying to do, because women are doing great things. But the thing is, we still need the support to do more. We still need those fences to come down, and we need equity, because it's never, like I stated earlier, it's never been even. We were always on the low side of things, because for some reason or another, I don't know, I'm a Christian and everything, but the people who started the world, whether other societies, because women in every society, not only the Liberian society, were originally marginalized. We were just thought of as people's property and just good to have babies for people and stuff like that, and like a sort of a trophy to show that they have a wife and they can have children, can run a home. So it's never been even, Mr. Ja. It's because it's never been even. Women did not have a fair chance from the beginning. So this is why we're having this discussion. And we would like to encourage men to continue to support women. For those men who are still sitting on the fence and still watching, and for those men who feel threatened, there's no need to feel threatened, because if the woman is in power and the woman can contribute more towards the society, even at the community level or at the home level. But Dennis, let me just say something quickly. We as women also, and advocates in general, just because we are women, we should not think that we know the issues of other women per se uniquely, and we know what's good for other women. We have to be very careful. We have to educate ourselves. Those of us women advocates, we have to educate ourselves as to those pertinent issues that are plaguing women, those barriers that individual women in the communities are facing, so that when we advocate for them, we do it the right way. And because if we don't really understand the issues as well, and we don't do it the right way, we can hurt the cause of women more than even help them. And that we say we want to do. So we ourselves as advocates and feminists, we need to be educated. We need to educate ourselves about what's going on, and we need to not assume that because we are educated or because we have some experiences, so we have all the answers and we know it all.
Thank you, Thomas. I want you to also respond to our callers and some of the comments you want to remember.
Yeah, I think the comments that you brought up happen to just follow the line of discussions that we had. I think one person was pointing out that women have been historically marginalized, and I think we already made that point. That's the reason why discussions like these are important for us to have it. so that we can be able to see what are these barriers that we can get removed. The other comment was, what do we stand to benefit from this gender equality or gender equity? I think one way to look at this is that, like you went to our census, right? The population we have almost equal number of women and men. If you have half of your population marginalized, they can play a major role in your productive sector. It affects your economy. That means you won't be able to produce at that optimal level where you need to produce. So therefore, giving women the space to be able to play a role in public life, to be able to contribute to our productivity, can help move our country forward. One of the things we've now spoken about a lot in the program is the issue of gender-based violence, right? Which is a major barrier for women. Because, for instance, when a woman is beaten and she has to go to hospital, she has to spend money. We tend not to do a lot of studies to be able to really quantify the cost of gender-based violence on us as a country. But that's huge amount of money that we spend, even just on awareness. Don't beat your wife. Don't deny your son feeding. Don't throw your wife out. We spend a lot of money on educating people to be able to change their attitudes. And also when these women are beaten, sometimes their hands are broken, sometimes their eyes are burst, they have to go to hospital. That is a huge cost. So if we can avoid that, all of that money that we are using there, we are able to put it into productive use to be able to move forward. If you look at the labor market, for instance, many of our women are in the informal sector where productivity is low, there are no social insurance that protect them and all of that. So if we are able to remove all of these barriers to make sure that everyone is contributing to really improving the services and goods that we produce in our country, we all do benefit as a country. It helps to be able to move us forward. And going back to the first caller, I think the position he was, the point where he was going is the point where the world has moved away from for many of the decades that have gone by. I think there's this point that certain sectors are sectors that only men can be in. And that's basically because we've built these things in our mind. These are gender roles that we assign to people. You know, the women are not strong and therefore they can't do construction, so only men can do it. You know, so even up to now, you have specific sectors where you have very little number of women. Back home, for instance, in Liberia, one of those sectors in the judiciary. It's only now that we've really started to see a lot of women. Even among our judges, you don't have a lot of women. And so even when gender-based violence cases and all of that, there are concerns that perhaps men might not approach these cases the way they need to approach them. So sectors where gender roles have made women to be underrepresented, I think instead of building these mindsets that women can do this because they are not strong in the army, for instance, in the police and all of that, this is where we need to break down those gender stereotypes to make sure that women can be included into those sectors, and then overall for us to be able to build a society that is much more productive. Say, for instance, this economy where we all are. If America has said that their women will not work, they will not participate, they wouldn't do what they are doing now, do you think they will have built this kind of economy? But this is an economy that allows everyone to be able to play a role so they are able to move forward. So I think gender equality and gender empowerment of women is a benefit to all of us. It makes us to be able to live as a peaceful society, and it makes us to be very much more productive.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, all of us will not be responding to the question and comments. Every Thursday here, we have a session called Tabata session. Not because we're talking women issue, you think you're going to skip that. So every week, there's some Tabata going on in our country. Tabata in the southeastern Liberian language means foolishness, complete nonsense, right? It goes on in Liberia. So at this time, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about our Tabata session. If you are watching us and you know of any Tabata of the week, please do not hesitate to share that with us.
Hi, my name is Addie Tyler from Pennsylvania, and you're watching Focus on Liberia.
All right, that's Abby Tyler from Pennsylvania. You're watching Focus on Liberia.
register to vote. Go and register to vote, 'cause that's your power.
Go and register to vote. That's your power. That is from Auntie Mianta Famule, we call her. That's the legendary Mianta Famule originals. Go and register to vote because that's your power. I also want to remind you that every Friday at 6 p.m., we have the literary hour. The literary hour comes on every Friday at 6 p.m. And this is where we discuss literature. The scholar Jackie Sire and Prof. K. Moses Nambe, they are the host. Every Saturday at 7 p.m., we have the Liberian History channel where we present Liberian history. Also, every Tuesday at 7 p.m., that's Abby Tyler's Healthy Living. This is where we discuss health and wellness. You don't want to miss it. Tomorrow, we're going to have, every Friday is also debate night. This time, we talk about the alleged murder and assassination attempt at the home of Justice Cat. This case has gone through many things, man. Who's telling the truth? We are confused. Also, in the same case, Major Koji, that's Mayor Koji, is he victim or perpetrator? Political parties petition legislature. Which party is part of that, and who's in, who's out? Don't forget, it's debate night, Friday night debate. They say if anybody say he or she is a good dancer, don't argue with them. Call a drummer. So the drummer will be here tomorrow night at 7 so we can debate. At this time, we go to our Tabata session. Every week, there is Tabata going on. Let me start with Mr. Salif here, who is the Aborigine for for the tough talking tonight. Mr. Salif, what's your Tabata of the week?
I don't know, just enter Miata's song. It seems to focus on if you don't like the way things are, register and vote, right? So,
and then she also said, if you like the way things are.
Okay, you like it, yeah. Okay, I didn't hear. I guess I didn't hear if you like the way, but if you don't like the way, but it was a very good jingle. I don't know if I have any particular tabatas except the students were chasing somebody on the UR campus again this week. It's become a practice now that these corrupt politicians who students have marked as as what they are, as corrupt, and I guess they've recognized that these people are destructive to their future. These young people who are supposed to be receiving high quality education, the university should have all the resources. If they're that corrupt and they're living in the society with with such impunity, they come on your campus, you just run them out, kind of. I mean, I don't promote violence, but it's become a practice now. I think it was I forgot who it was this week that it ran.
Aloysius Howie is the assistant to Minister to it.
Exactly. So,
thank you. Let me go to Masa for Tabata of the week.
The week is this young fellow Martin Colley came out with this list. I think he came out with a list on Friday or so. I just got it Sunday. So he came out with this list of all these people who supposedly have PhDs and all these big degrees, and he is claiming through his research that all these people who are claiming to have all these big degrees, they are all fraud. They don't really have those degrees and those titles. So one thing is with the Liberian people, and I see it a lot. I mean, if you want a degree, just go to school. Discipline yourself, go to school. One thing about America, wherever, as long as you enter school, you will finish. You can go to school wherever you are. You can go to school online. So, for me, it touched a chord because it's such, for me, it epitomizes the extent to which Liberians want to make Liberia a fraudulent state. So, I mean, they don't want to leave any aspect of the society or decent and you know, and credible. They destroy everything else, and then they come here again to destroy all the higher institution of learning by all these fake degrees. And you know, it's just ridiculous. For me, it's the greatest topic that this week that I saw.
Thank you. Abby, what's your Tabata of the week?
I know we're doing Tabata on this show tonight, so I don't particularly have one. But let me just say, Elvis Morris, is that really thinking that women are, you know, we're wanting to be men and we want to be equal to men? People, my Tabata of the week is everybody needs to take the word feminism, look it up, do a book report on it, the modern or you know urgent and you know modern definitions, everything. Women don't want to be equal to men. Did they even see the picture that you put up before? We just want to well, you know, level playing field. And people saying, well, women want to get into the program, they have to be able to compete with men. And because women can't just be anything, we can't just give them something. They have to compete with the men. So we're assuming that the men are already strong candidates. Have you seen some of the male candidates in Liberia? I mean, like, what did they bring into the table? Basically, they just come in because they're men. Even when you talk about the fact that a couple of years ago, when this Magdala Cooper, when she was running to, I think she has a child with the president. That's what I know that to be. I mean, people had this whole big, like, many essays on Facebook how she, you know, she's sleeping with everybody's man. She got 3 children by 3 different men. Meanwhile, the president was like nothing with his reproductive right, nothing. It was like, oh yeah, he's a family man, he's married, he's this, he got a lovely wife and all that too. But they tore her to pieces, and because she's strong, okay, that's why she's like so standing tall and everything. Now, I don't agree with everything that she does, but people should stop thinking that when people say feminism or we talk about women's rights and to be allies of women's rights, that we're trying to be equal to men. We're not trying to take away the place at your table because the table doesn't even belong to you anyways. We're just asking for equal playing field. That's it.
Thank you. Thomas, what's your Tabata of the week?
So we discussed this a couple of, I think, weeks ago, but I think you'll be discussing it tomorrow. But I think basically political parties have said that the census, the provisional census result is a Tabata. I mean, I was going through the statement they put up. The fastest population growth rate is Green Crew, and they're saying not even a university is in Green Crew that is pulling people into Green Crew. So I think basically what they say is, I mean, this is all just Tabata. We just need to cancel it. So to me, it's interesting. We need to follow it up and be able to see next week and the week following how far this is going to grow. But that miraculous population growth in the Southeast is still something we are digging through. It doesn't align with all of the population growth theories. So perhaps Liberia is going back to the Guinness Book of Record for that kind of growth without any push or pull factor.
Thank you. Jackie? If you can unmute yourself, Jackie. Okay.
Wow. Am I unmuted now? Okay. I think it's for me it's the study that came out about this lady who
Jackie, Jackie, your audio is very bad.
Yeah, because now you see I came in the basement because the internet was not working. Can you hear me now?
It's still bad, still horrible.
Can you hear me now?
Not well. It's bad.
Okay, well then, so if you can't hear me, then it's okay. Then I don't need to.
So you can write your Tabata because, or you come out and you get out and come back in.
No, it's okay. It's almost ending now, but it's okay.
All right. My Tabata is, I think I saw a video where the president was saying, how come, people retire at 60, but then when they come to the presidency, people that are in their 70s still running. I don't know if that's true. That's complete Tabata. Let's see what our viewers are saying. Francis Wilson said, my Tabata of the week goes to the abject ignorance and disrespect of one of your hosts or panelists who disrespected, lied on, and insulted the former Chief Justice and refused to apologize. He should have been suspended. So my Tabata is with you, Dennis, for not appropriately handling the situation. And the situation Francis is making reference to is what one of our panelists here on Friday night debate said about Justice Minister, former Justice Minister, former Chief Justice Scott. Let me see if we have any other Tabata here. Well, there's no more Tabata. So thank you all for coming. Let's take at least 39 seconds each for your closing. Mr. Kane.
Thank you, Dennis. It was a pleasure being on the platform with all of these great women. I'm willing to offer my table because they say the table is not even for you. Why do you invite us to the table? So it's available. Anyone that wants to take it can take it. But like we all say, I think this whole issue. One of the callers said that women had a greater role to play in the 60s and 70s because they were educated then. I mean, we didn't happen to see that generation. And for us, in my current generation, where we actually saw this momentum for women empowerment and gender equality was after the Civil War. And I think the women of Liberia, the role they play in ending the Civil War with some of the changes that happened in the UN Resolution 1325, all of that actually laid the foundation for empowering women and making sure that we have equality in our society. We've made some progress. The institutional framework is there. The legal framework is there. It's actually, like we have all said, implementing these laws to be able to really empower women that is the problem. But that also has to do with resources and allocating the resources effectively. So I would just want to say, as a country, this is a transition that we are in. We're moving forward. I think the more we have these discussions and be able to push for these things, the more they can happen. But I mean, for us as men, like I said initially, at a certain point, we need to step back to give space, to be able to play a role, to help these people who we share this planet with. It's either them, the mothers, or us who they give birth to. So thank you to all of the panelists. It was great being with you. And I look forward to another opportunity to come and discuss another subject. Happy International Women's Day to all of you again, to all of the women listening.
Thank you. Let's go to Abby for your closing.
Oh, I thought I did my closing already. Well, it was really nice being here with all of you. Being here with Jackie and then Masa. Masa scares me because she knows so much. Jackie knows so much. So, but I was, you guys are my hero, so thank you for allowing me to be among, and the men, I'll take your table any day, we can all share together too. So thank you all for having me, and hopefully we'll be back again. Thank you.
Thank you. Masa, your closing, please.
So I would just like to use this time to say thank you, Dennis, but then also to make a compassionate plea to everybody, especially our friend women. We tend to, and all of us sometimes are unconsciously guilty of that. We tend to set the bar extremely high when it comes to women. Of course, we should be above reproach, but then the thing is, why do we think that women are supposed to be perfect and men are okay? They can make mistake, no problem. They can do this, no problem. But every time a woman braves it and shows her face, whether on a platform such as this or public office or whatsoever, and we think sometimes it's not even what they've done, but what we think they're not doing right, or is someone just tell a lie, we come down hard on women. So I see women being so extremely judgmental and hard on other women, but then I see these same women make the case for men. So it's like, I think I wrote on my Facebook page one time, why do you think women should be perfect? I'm not saying that women should not be the best version of themselves, but what I'm saying is, women, you need to, take a break, and we are in this together. So, I think it would be a good thing if women can learn to appreciate all of us. And when I say all of us, I mean our entire characteristics, even when we're having our monthly and, and we're a bit moody or whatever, or we just give baby and we, or we menopausal, it's all of us, and we need to embrace that and support that.
Thank you. Ahmed?
Thank you. Thank you, Dennis. I will reiterate, it's been an honored discussion tonight. I really I've enjoyed and being honored by the presence, just being on this panel tonight with these three uh, phenomenal Liberian women. Um, International Women's Day is about celebrating the cultural, political, economic, social achievements of women all over the world. Um, it's been around for a long time. I think 1911, 19, so it's evolved over many years. As a result of that movement, we've seen the CEDA, the Convention on the Elimination of all discriminations against all forms of discriminations against women, and other treaties as well that relate to women and children. And so I'm raising this to say we should continue to celebrate women among us, whether they're related to us or not, whether they're colleagues, they're what are the people in power high places, and also humble women that we know they're achieving, they're doing great things. I think the more we the men recognize that the table doesn't belong to us in the first place, we're offering ourselves to help build a table together and own the table out of us. I think the more we expand the table, the more we all put ideas together and decide the type of table that we need and how people get invited to the table. I think it will be good for everyone. I'll end with one quick analogy that is very close to that table analogy. This Jim Collins is a management scholar who wrote about this famous book, Good to Great, right? He talks about how do you select the right passengers and put them on the bus and take the wrong passengers off the bus. That once they get on the bus, it's not enough that you're on the bus, but the premium seats, you identify the seats. There's a whole process of how do we expand the table? Who decide what kind of table is there? Who all comes around the table? I think that's where that equity comes in. And that's what we all should promote in every sphere of our lives and every opportunity that we have.
Thank you. So if you already have a table, we want you to surrender the table. And this time, let the women take part in designing that table, in building that table, so that we can all take ownership of the table. And we remove the barrier so that we don't keep asking for stools.
Can I just say one more thing? I wasn't putting down surgical text. I was giving my idea and just example on how if any man that walks in the patient's room that has a scrub on, that has scrubs on, everybody assumes right away that he is the doctor. So it's like the same thing with men and women, and also like I said with racial thing too. But no, I wasn't putting down any surgical text. We all work together. We're all part of the team that takes care of the patient. Okay.
And Abby, did you know when I gave the radio that that was the boy's mother who was the surgeon, or you thought that was a man?
Oh no, I knew where you're going with that.
All right. Jackie, you get the last word. And we'll live through that sound if it's still there.
Is it still there?
No, it's not.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis, for inviting me. And thank you to my fellow panelists. I was waiting to see company, and I want to say thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. It's really bad. But I want to thank all of you. I want to thank our viewers for watching. Always watch Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Also want to remind you that our fundraiser to expand our work in Liberia, have a radio station that covers from Cape Town to Cape Palmas. That's the dream. So we can have this PBS model. The Focus on Liberia PBS model is nowhere else in Liberia. This is the only place where you have other programs on just one network, educating at a literature, health, business, finance, economics, you name it. We cover it all. So we want to expand to Liberia. So if you have 200 or 300,000 to give me tomorrow morning, you can have a radio station in Liberia. But don't think that's too big. So we are working on that, and we'll be contacting you. A date of the fundraiser will be set. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank our viewers and even those who are going to watch later. Always focus on Liberia. We end with the song that says, we are all Liberians. Whether you have a table or no table, whether you are at the table already, we are all Liberians, and we must do our very best to make our country the glorious land of liberty. Have a good night, and God bless you.
We are Liberia. Liberia is our home.